Hi, everyone, and welcome to Marketplace Masters. I'm Paul Sonneveld, and today we're going to look at a shelf on Amazon that most brands have never audited, the AI shopping assistant. Every brand watching this has an organic rank strategy and a paid ad strategy. Two shelves, well understood, heavily optimized. But shoppers are increasingly asking Amazon's AI what to buy. Amazon themselves says that the Rufus engine behind Alexa for shopping helped over 300 million customers in 2025. And the assistant's answer is a third shelf entirely, one that plays by very different rules. And until now, nobody could really tell what those rules are. Now, joining me today is Christian Umbach. He's the co-founder and CEO of Autopilot, a company dedicated to boosting merchant profitability and preserving consumer choice for billions worldwide. Now, before Autopilot, he co-founded and led xAPIX.io, an API and enterprise machine learning platform that helped companies orchestrate and exchange data across systems. Trained as a systems engineer through MIT System Design and Management Fellowship, he's worked at the edges of hard operational problems with experience connected to Uber, Hyperloop, and Lufthansa. The thought line of his career is consistent. Take a messy, manual system, understand it deeply, and then let it run on its own. Christian, it is so good to have your Marketplace Masters today. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Paul. Excited to join and share a bit about our story and on sort of our thesis of the third shelf.
Yeah, excellent. I think it's a super interesting topic, this whole concept of this third shelf. I must admit, I probably fall into that category where I don't pay enough attention to it. Let's get into the conversation. And before I do, for those that are watching this live, if you do have questions for Christian, I'll be asking him a number of questions. But if you've got questions of your own, don't hesitate. Put them in the LinkedIn comments or on the YouTube comments, and I will put them through him. So we're going to have a very interesting discussion today. But let's start here. Most brands, and this was in my intro too, most brands describe Amazon as a two-shelf game, organic search and paid ads. Give us really the one-line case for why the AI assistant is generally a third shelf, as opposed to just a smarter search box, right? Why is it a genuine third shelf?
Yep. So we see it as a genuine third shelf because it's working under different inputs, different assumptions, and most importantly, it's producing different results. And that's really what our study here that we ran across a large set of ASINs across 70,000 products focused on, which was, okay, is it different, or is it following the patterns of organic search? Is it following the patterns of paid search? Or does it maybe build on some of these patterns, but actually has a pattern on its own? And we confirmed that through the study, and happy to share more about that today.
Yeah, look forward to really getting into that. But before that, how do you even study an AI assistant at scale? It's kind of sort of how you do the study is kind of an interesting question in itself for me. What methodology did you come up with? What do you actually measure? How many queries, data points? Give us a sense of the work undertaken and how you went about that question.
Yep. So obviously, what we wanted to find out through the study is what do humans see, what do shoppers see today, not agent shoppers, but you and I, when we go to Amazon.com and search for products. So the way for us to approach this study was really, we didn't want to use any scraping on the site because Amazon detects that, and either you get shut down, but it certainly impacts the search results that you're receiving. So the way we approached that is we designed about 2,000 non-branded queries across different categories. So we said we want to test 250 queries within the apparel space, within supplements, within home and kitchen, within beauty, and within a couple of other categories. We also had sort of a set of branded query tests, but for the purpose of what we're sharing today, it's mainly focused on the unbranded side. So we took 2,000 queries, and we would literally by hand go to the traditional search and look for sneakers, for example, or running shoes, and then on most of the pages, as you're logged in, and we were always logged in with a US account, you would also already see the Alexa search bar. So in those cases, we would also there go in and say, okay, what is the best running shoe, running sneaker, and then basically our job was to look at what are the Alexa results that are showing up versus what is the detail, what is kind of the search result page look like, and what's paid versus organic there. And at the end of the day, then take those 2,000 queries. That gives you about just ASIN results if you or kind of distinct ASINs across all of the searches. If you just add up the full detail, the full search result page, and we would have within that set then about 13,500 Alexa specific ASIN recommendations. So we would see those 13,000 recommendations that Alexa gave us. Here's 110,000 products that came up on the search result page. Were they paid? Were they organic? What is kind of their placement if they were both? And then we saw that obviously there are some duplicate ASINs in there. So you could say that the study overall captured about 70,000 unique ASINs.
Oh, that is a very comprehensive effort. So, of course, the first question that I'm sure every brand owner has on their mind, and I'm really curious, is, if you compare those results, right, Alexa to the standard search result, is the assistant recommending the same products? Going back to your point you made about this is a genuine third shelf. Is it recommending the same product that the kind of the SEO and the ad strategy are built around, or are you seeing some very different results?
Yep, and we'll actually have some numbers to share on that one as well. So at the very core, we saw that 64% of the top AI picks, or the Alexa picks, are not part of the organic top. And kind of to show you this a little bit on a different view on this data, the number one suggestion that Alexa makes still around 55% of the time is also within the organic top 10. But then if we look at, for example, go further down the Alexa suggestions, and what we did was basically we kept asking it, don't only give me one or two products, what are other products there? So if we look at suggestion number 8, for instance, that would only be in the organic top 10 about 18% of the time overall. And what we took from that, and obviously within organic you only have so much space, but that there is a clear diversification of results. The reason why a product is in the organic top 10, which kind of builds around Amazon's quality and sales velocity and reviews and all of that, gives you also a higher chance of winning with Alexa. But it is not a kind of guaranteed ticket into that. And kind of a different way, our friends at Marketplace Polls took kind of that same view and presented the data in a slightly different way, basically saying your organic top 10 sort of give you a 36% chance of getting into the Alexa results. But then the other side, I think that for us was probably the most fascinating result that 40% of the results that Alexa gave us, and we never asked more than kind of 10 suggestions, but 40% of those results are not anywhere, whether it's sponsored or organic, on the kind of traditional results search page.
Yeah, that's so interesting, because we know how heavily weighted that first set of results is in terms of the sales against that particular search term. So being able to somehow squeeze your way in there, maybe through Alexa, through AI, is definitely an incremental opportunity for those, particularly for those brands that maybe haven't established that really strong ranking yet. And of course, if there was marketers here, the first question is like, I know I've heard about ChatGPT. There's some, advertising engine there. There's something going on there. Is there a way I can influence the results here with ad spend in terms of Alexa? Can I essentially buy my way into Alexa's and AI recommendations on Amazon?
Yep. And we had a similar question. Basically, the answer that we found was, if an advertised product is coming up in Alexa, your chances, first of all, are lower being in Alexa than they are being on the actual sort of search results page. So 20.7% of overall results that we saw on the general pages, like the search results page, were sponsored. In the Alexa picks, only 14% of those were sponsored. And then if your hopes are that maybe you're not showing up on the top there, but you can kind of buy your way into it, unfortunately, that's not a viable path. Only 2.4% of results that came up in Alexa and were kind of advertised were not on the first kind of advertising. Is not necessarily a path towards creating visibility there within Alexa. Obviously, the downstream effects of advertising, which is you get more visibility, you get more sales, and that sales velocity now gets you up there. But then that overall will bring you both then over time on the first page, but also increase your chance of getting into the Alexa recommendations.
So right now, hard to buy your way into that. In fact, it doesn't help. Of course, we don't know what the Amazon advertising team is doing. I'm sure they're thinking about this, but that's what it is. That's what it looked like right now. So that begs the question: if you can't buy your way into it, what can you do, right? What actually influences, whether the assistant, picks up your products? I'm not sure whether you guys got into this in the study, but what are the signals that mattered most? How much is actually driven by the actual listing and the structured content and all of those things versus things like reviews, availability, seller reputation, those secondary things. What did you learn there?
So some of the core learnings on that side for one, all of the results that Alexa suggested had a rating of 4.0 or above. They were all available, and at the same time, from kind of a velocity perspective, we could see that there was an overarching amount where like the listings would have kind of a call out of sold 50 last month, sold 100 last month, for example. So some indication of velocity. It's obviously hard for us to tell whether those are, you could say, the highest moving items like within that category. We just can't go that far to, I guess, conclude that. But it's certainly listings where Amazon felt like, okay, we're giving the shopper suggestions here where we have different proof points available. The listing itself, and they had decent quality. in terms of bullet points, in terms of titles and so forth, but then also sort of sales velocity, review quality, those different bits and pieces coming together. So I think as a brand looking at, what's the playbook today to achieve that, I do think it is, kind of covering those different bases, which is, you work around reviews. So probably, in the early days of a product life cycle, doing Vine, is a helpful step there, and finding a way on how you do those and kind of get reviews in at scale. And then I think the other part is more kind of on the data feed level or listing optimization level, making sure that you have the right signals in your product catalog itself to help Amazon understand, like, for the persona that it understands as kind of the shopper of, like, it's college student back to kind of moving into their first dorm room right now. So that's kind of the shopping mode that they're in. Now, how does it match to the products that it's surfacing, and kind of do we see a reflection of that? That's at least what we're reading from parts of the data, but I think from a statistical significance perspective, there it just realistically it gets a little bit softer.
Yeah, no, I understand. It's there's so many variables. Trying to work out what the prompt behind Amazon's AI assistant is in terms of how they evaluate the results and then present something back to you. That's an interesting exercise. But I'm sure as you mentioned before, some really interesting glimpses of where, hints and where things point to. Now, I know you've just done the study, and, if you were to repeat this over time, it'd be really interesting to see whether things move and shift, whether you have some time series data. But did you get into any of that? Did you do any tests around that in terms of the stability of the recommendations? For example, if you go back the next day or the week after, is Alexa still recommending the same products, or is it a completely different set? Is there an element of randomness to it, or does it change? Did you pick up any insights on that question?
We tested it just on a smaller scale. So basically, before we kind of properly ran the 2,000 queries, kind of testing it, with a set of like 5 to 10, like how does it change day by day? And we saw that, we mainly ran the study in June 2026. So we did see good consistency there, such that we said, okay, like for this initial jump that we're going to do, we're going to focus this on kind of a one-time run. But I would overall expect that, as the entire space is developing and Alexa is going to continue developing and get fine-tuned, that we're going to see results evolve. And I think especially around the importance of maybe better understanding particular signals over time. And then we'll see what's going to happen on the advertising side. I think that's kind of an area where we'll see new advertising products emerge as well that kind of give a more clear kind of playing field. Obviously, Amazon launched kind of sponsored product prompts, I believe, or the rollout was in March this year. And we're going to start seeing more of that, I believe. We didn't come across too much of in the study that we ran. But I think, whether it's Alexa or AI search tools outside, ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, and so forth, like everyone's playing around with, okay, how do we create the best user experience? And to a certain degree, I think advertising can be part of a good user experience as well.
So I wanted to go back to, obviously, I've got some questions around the broader ChatGPT, Claude, and Gemini, and all those models. But before we get there, I just wanted to go a little bit deeper still on maybe some of the category differences, because you mentioned you picked a whole range of ASINs across different categories, home, electrical, apparel, and the like. In terms of Alexa recommending a set of products versus the organic search results, where do you see on sort of a category or department by department view, were there differences, in terms of, Alexa pushing recommendations maybe that were outside the top 10? Anything that worth comparing and contrasting based on your findings in the study?
Yep. So we actually have a few numbers on that as well. The I think main takeaway for us was that if we looked at apparel versus kind of the or at least home and kitchen, beauty, and health and supplements, like other was maybe a bit of a, let's leave out other in this context, but the line between like does rank protect versus not protect was least strong for apparel. So it was the most diversified results that we were getting, and while for all kind of this thesis of 36% of your of the Alexa results still came from the top 10 organic, for apparel this was much lower, and maybe that's due to just the nature of let's call it custom preferences in apparel. That's where I would be looking overall. I think in terms of Amazon understanding preferences. We both like blue shirts, for example, and Amazon knows that we're buying blue shirts. It will impact the way that it is surfacing results, and that does not necessarily maybe follow the same pattern today on the traditional search results pages. And just in apparel, you have, I think it's probably the category with the highest level degree of what's called custom preferences, customization. So we see that as a reflection of that, which basically for brands playing in that category means that you both have, well, let's say you have kind of the highest opportunity to say, okay, here's actually the full range of products, and here's like a number of different use cases, for example, that these products are good for. And we actually see that around apparel really nicely, for instance, in some of the work we do around seasonality, which is you have those seasons, like Halloween is going to be coming up pretty soon, where everything orange gets a sales spike around Halloween. So it's kind of have these weird nuances of very kind of mini tentpole events or micro seasonal demand.
Yeah, I think, look, it does make sense on a category by category basis there, just because of the nature of the category and the consumer choice, and maybe AI being able to play a stronger role in recommending things based on preferences, based on what other people have done there. That's certainly interesting. So sort of goes back to the kind of the top line question for me, which is, if I'm a brand owner, say like I'm in apparel, right? And I know this matters in apparel, it matters even more than it does in health and supplements. Although I can't read exactly. I think it says 53%. That's still quite a bit. But in apparel, like as a brand owner in apparel, and I'm watching this video, what are some practical things I can do really to try and boost my featuring in AI recommendations? I know you've already given us like some sort of correlations that you've observed, maybe not statistically significant at this time. We know that spending money on advertising, I know Amazon's done that, obviously the prompts based, but I'm sure there's more coming. But in the meantime, what are some practical things that I can do to improve my chances and odds to show up?
So apparel specifically is actually one of the big winners, for example, of Amazon's latest title policy and introduction of item highlights, because apparel, a lot of categories within apparel used to live under this restriction of you have 125 character title, and then you kind of go into the listing from there. Like now, just from a pure real estate perspective, like yes, the title is getting shorter, but you get a dedicated field, 125 characters just for item highlights, to basically show all the great things of the product being waterproof and following specific compliance measures, for example. So it's almost like an added marketing field there to call that out. I think the other part, and with Autopilot brand, we do a lot of work with apparel brands. For example, one of the core areas where like automation works very, very well is to sort of lift the overall standard of the product catalog. And you can, that kind of starts on the sort of on the foundation of the catalog in terms of like, is there a proper reflection of all of the attributes and so forth? But then the interaction point for the shopper is, if you look at a lot of apparel products on Amazon today, it's kind of barely like 3 to 5 bullet points. But if there are 5 bullet points, it's usually kind of just a kind of a little, it's kind of made in the US, like cotton, and kind of just buzzwords. It's not really leveraging that space. And obviously you have, you sell 100 products, it's actually 10,000 listings, so it's not that easy to kind of wrangle as a catalog, but we see a very, very heavy impact and lift for conversion rates, and through that then growth, traffic growth as well, on actually getting hands on there and bringing this in.
Yeah, that's I mean, it makes so much sense. I mean, certainly apparel has always been the challenge, so much range, such a wide curve or variance in sizes, seasonality, new drops depending on the type of apparel you're in. It's always a much heavier lift than other categories, but I guess there are much better tools out there to help with this these days, and it certainly seems to pay off. At least your stats seem to suggest that, so that's really interesting. Let's sort of go a little bit wider now, beyond Amazon. Search results in models like ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini. Obviously search results may be pointing back to your Shopify site, or to even to the ASIN listing or the PDP. Did you form a view as part of your study on how things work in relation to those those search engines? Let's call them that. It's probably not the correct term. Any differences, similarities? What observations can you share with us?
Yep. So one thing that we came across, which I think it got published over the course of June as well, while we were just kind of wrapping up our own study, and we found it really interesting from an insights point of view. I think this was a study done by Peak AI here, published in Search Engine Land. So in their case, they basically looked at ChatGPT results, and we're trying to understand like where's ChatGPT sourcing from, and they could see that 45% kind of from an exact match perspective of the kind of carousel products that ChatGPT would recommend were directly coming out of the Google Shopping top 40, which for us was kind of an interesting finding, because we'd just seen that like on through our own study, 36% of the kind of, I guess let's call it Alexa products carousel, Alexa recommendations, came from the organic top 10, and obviously if you go further down the page, like that number increases. But on the ChatGPT side, you have this strong tie-in into the Google Shopping kind of ecosystem today, at least from a data perspective. So for us, that was, I guess, an initial finding on the same level, you could say, as we were looking at with our study. But then obviously the much bigger question outside of that is like, okay, well, it's nice to see the numbers, but how do we actually play there? Like, what's the playbook to be visible there? And like, that's an area that we've been increasingly passionate about, because if we look at like what's the strength of brands that are doing well on Amazon, is you actually have a lot of data that, whether you like it or not, Amazon requires you to provide to Amazon and to fill in. So all of your different catalog attributes, and Amazon's kind of been going through these waves of ensuring that those are of higher and higher quality. Because for Amazon itself, it is this you could say, low-cost feed of information to understand the products better. Now, ChatGPT, Claude, Grok, and others, they don't have this luxury. They don't have at least at scale, a low-cost feed, data feed basically into them today. So we started looking into, okay, like how can we actually take some of the learnings? And I think this is most critical to brands that have a strong Amazon footprint overall, because you're basically, like, Amazon is walling you from the search world out there. I guess, ChatGPT will go to Google, and Google has some of your Amazon product data as well, kind of, as a bridge. But it's still very, very limited. It's cached. It's not complete by all means. So we started taking that understanding. Right now that's running with at 50 events or so, where we have took a lot of the context that the brand also had, like, through their Shopify site, through other data sources, and we started creating agent sites specifically. They're very much linked to their Shopify site if they have one, for instance, really with the goal of saying, like, okay, like, we're expecting not only human readers to come to the Shopify site, but bots are playing an important role. And let's make this data available as far as we can, as far as kind of it makes sense for the brand, in terms of saying, like, here are the products, here's what they're good at, here are some of the unique selling points around them, here are my item highlights, you could say, and then signaling that basically for bots this information. And then the part that's easiest to say, okay, like, a bot came now to the site, hey, great, Meta is scraping it, Claude is scraping it, they're all, they gather the information and they're coming back the next day or the next week to see if there's anything new. But then we actually started seeing, like, oh, this is showing up in citations that are measured through AI visibility tools. In Google Analytics, you can now see kind of AI assistant traffic as well. So we'd see for the brands that are running, the AI assistant traffic is getting up. There's add to carts reported around that traffic. I think it's still very early. It's kind of the Wild West, I think, in many ways, of what's called search and discovery around the agent platforms. But I do think that the foundation of good data feeds, good comprehensive understanding of your customer base, their use cases, is something that Amazon has very, very much kind of trained us on, and that becomes a real asset now in a much broader world of search, where it's from the example of a Amazon focused brand. You open up the data out there, obviously, to with the goal of bringing more traffic than Amazon, because that's where you want to sell. That's where maybe you've built a brand so far, and you don't necessarily need to change that. But I think it's opening kind of a much broader visibility spectrum, but beyond kind of the playbook of saying, like, oh, you've been strong on Amazon, you got to go to TikTok. I think that part is already much more established in the sort of CMO's mind today.
So, yeah, that's really interesting. To me, it's like, well, like, maybe content optimization isn't dying yet, right? It's almost like now you got to think about what is the content for the actual consumer, a person, and how do you optimize a PDP, or maybe a separate page, or whatever platform that lives on, for AI bot discovery. I think that's
exactly.
kind of a really interesting, and that's kind of that's kind of new lever, right? Super interesting. Now we are well over time, but we did have one of our audience members ask a question. I want to do the right thing and just answer, or at least ask the question. I'll leave the answering to you before we wrap up. So the question comes from CA Ecom. And the question is, can you estimate the degree of impact that Cosmo has on traditional search in 2026? Are search results being like reordered based on customer, location, time of day? Any insights into that question? Oh, let me make sure I've got the right page here. Here we go.
Yep. I guess to dissect it a little bit, obviously we're halfway through 2026, and we're obviously all itching to understand what's what Amazon launches next and what's going to happen next. I think overall, and taking kind of pure Amazon.com perspective here, I think Alexa is going to continue to take more sort of real estate, and Amazon will nudge more users into kind of a search versus a traditional search in that regard. So the share of traditional search is going to decrease over time, and I think we already see that if you go to a search bar today, once in a while it actually directs you directly to an Alexa for shopping search. It doesn't even allow you to kind of perform traditional search in that way yet. And then I think a couple of foundational items that have held true under traditional search will continue to hold true, which is Amazon knows that they are creating a happy customer if they're allowing you to buy a product that is good in terms of well reviewed, good ratings as well, and speed obviously matters for satisfaction as well. So I think its ability to understand, okay, how fast can we get a product to the person that is looking to shop here is certainly one, and they want to avoid that you just saw something which may be a great product, but is like needs to ship over from the other coast, and maybe comes at the risk then of someone going to Walmart and just getting it within 24 hours at Walmart. So I think some of those metrics will hold true, but overall from a sort of search discovery perspective, a lot more will go towards Alexa, and certainly towards the models outside of Amazon as well, where I think OpenAI had the stat that about 20% of all ChatGPT queries are already have some level of shopping intent. And I think last year there was a study that like 2.1% were specifically product searches, which at the time were like I guess 50 million a day, and I think what today would be like well over 100 million product searches.
Yeah. Thank you for that answer. Much appreciated. We are well over time, so we're going to have to wrap up. Christian, thank you so much for joining me today. That was a really phenomenal session. Such new ground here. I really suspect that more than a few people just added, we have to audit our presence on this third shelf, our catalog quality, all of those attributes. I'm sure it's been a bit of a wake-up call for many. So thank you for conducting the study and giving and sharing with us those insights that just lifts the lid on this space that obviously is rapidly evolving. Now I was just going to say, if people, I know you're about to publish the full results of the study. If people are interested in getting their hands on that, what's the best way to do that?
Yep, we'll have to publish it through the order. We do a weekly newsletter, so we'll make sure that folks get their hand on that. Otherwise, it's theoneorder.substack.com. But we'll also link it to the webinar here.
Yeah, we'll put it in the notes and make sure you've got all those links and get your hand on those study results. Okay,
Perfect.
Christian, thank you so much. It's been great.
Well, thank you so much, Paul, and have a wonderful day, everyone.
Thank you. Okay, everyone. Before we wrap, a couple of quick reminders. This session was recorded. and registrants will get the replay landing in the inbox in the next 24 hours. So feel free to forward it to whoever owns your Amazon channel within your business. As Christian mentioned, if you want to hear more from him about the study, we'll make sure that links are in the show notes so you can access those. And of course, if you're getting value out of Marketplace Masters, the best thing you can do for us is to either hit follow or subscribe on YouTube and forward this episode to another brand owner and share some of the content that we're producing for you. I'm Paul Sonneveld. I'll be back next week with another live conversation. Until then, keep building and take care.